everybody. I'm Candid Frank Stanishi. He's David Morrisudi. He was Sportsnet. Me with Candid Frank on YouTube, 1030. This subject matter today, we've literally blown up today. I mean, there's so much to talk about, and the biggest thing is, of course, the rule changes. And the second thing we'll talk about is Arbuckle's return to the starting lineup under center. So first of all, David, a little background. I'll say this. David Frank and the rest of the media that follows the Canadian Football League and is on the mailing list for the Canadian Football League and or the Toronto Argonauts, whatever, were minding our own business a couple of days ago. And then suddenly we got this email. And the email spoke very, very sparingly on the exact topic that was involved. It hinted at rule changes, at rules. And from the moment that email hit everybody, the world went crazy, because I think part of the reason was the coincidence that MLSC created a relationship and we're entering into a relationship with the Buffalo Bills. Mm-hmm. So here's an owner of the Toronto Argonauts, a member of the CFL, getting together with an NFL team, the closest team to them. So they enter into this relationship. David, you can pick it up from there.
Yeah, I mean, there was a lot of speculation going into this. I tried my best to see if I could get any info, and a lot of lips were sealed on it. It wasn't until kind of a couple minutes before the press conference that I got a little something that there were going to be some. We knew rule changes were coming, but that it wasn't going to be anything in terms of the. I would assume probably the one that most people were concerned about being the 3 downs. Canadian ratio and so those sort of things. I wanted to see if that was going to be kind of discussed, but when Stuart Johnson was making the announcement, it was almost like he went through this long kind of monologue, and it's like, okay, well, and then we were waiting for that big pin to drop, and he brought up, okay, these are the changes. At first, it wasn't as clear. I will admit there was a lot being thrown at, but the way that it was being outlined wasn't. It needed more of a visual, which eventually they did put the visual. We did get a release from the CFL unveiling the 2-step change in terms of the rules and field dimensions and those sort of things. And so I think to some there was obviously some intrigue into what the rules, what the changes were going to be and what they meant. And for some, it was almost like, okay, the 3 downs that a lot of people were, concerned about, like those sort of things were kept in line. So, and I know that we'll get into the kind of the reaction to everything, but yeah. So essentially, do you want me to run down everything that's being changed?
Well, hold on a second on running everything down. I just want to go backwards a little bit.
Yeah.
I want to also mention that part of when I said we didn't know what was going on, not only did we not know, those of us in the media did not know what was coming up. Neither did any of the players, coaches, or anybody in football. Nobody knew what was going on here. In fact, now that the reporting has begun, and I've had a chance to do a little bit of research and a little bit of listening. For example, the coach and the players of the Toronto Argonauts did not know what was going on till about an hour before the announcement. Correct, David?
No, yeah. So the thing is, the Argos were practicing, so they wouldn't have known really anything until after the fact. I believe some of the front office people were given a little bit of a heads up that something was coming. But not to the full. I don't think they got the full picture until it was fully announced. Like when I talked to Ryan Dinwiddie yesterday, he said like they knew something was going to be changed, but they didn't have the full scope of it. So like they really didn't want this stuff to be leaked. Now, when you have things like that happen, it also invites a lot of
Speculation.
which
A lot.
is exactly what happened, and did let's just say a lot of work being thrown at different people, and some of the state people who had more stake into everything were pretty saying, let's wait and see what the commissioner has to say before we, go all
Right.
essentially make sure that
Let's hear what's going on.
Exactly. Let's hear what's going on first.
Okay. And what I'd like to do as well is that the CFLPA, that's the union, the players, had no idea what was going on. They were just the same in the dark as we were. College, the universities, and any other football organization that may be affected by these decisions were also unaware of what was going on. On the flip side of that, that meant that none of them were consulted either, David.
Yeah.
Right? So none of them were consulted. So I'm just trying to set a picture. So now I'm sitting in the Hotel X in this beautiful big ass room with beautiful marble everywhere, water that runs underneath the floor, beautiful place. Big screens referring to the CFL. Anybody who's ever done anything with the Canadian Football League and probably may in the future do something with the Canadian Football League was there. They were all there. It was crowded as I've never seen a press conference, even at the Grey Cup, David. There hasn't been this many people in one room awaiting a conversation about the Canadian Football League and on anything, any subject matter whatsoever. I've never seen so many. And this excluded, I want to underline this part. It excluded pretty much 7 other teams. Hamilton was represented, the Argos were represented, but there wasn't anybody from any of the other teams. So add that to the mix as well of who wasn't involved in this directly, and it gives you an indication of the kind of secrecy that was involved in making this decision. Questions we can ask ourselves questions as to why the secrecy, why these decisions were made the way they were. We can discuss that moving forward. So the first thing that happens when people start hearing all this stuff, my heart first goes out to the fans. And the fans, my phone blew up with people on Facebook, on Twitter, all of them concerned with what I'm going to call from the basic response, the Canadian Football League and the game that it has had for over 100 years, fans felt like it was under attack. I'd like to bring in a fan that I owe a lot to, not just as a friend, not just as being supportive, everything on the table here. This guy helped me start what we're doing here today, some 13, whatever it was, years ago. And he joined me on the ride to make it happen. He has been not just somebody who's a season ticket holder for him and his significant other. He also has bought extra tickets just to give to people to show up to the game that he literally sponsored to come to the game. And guess what? I was one of those people. All right. So I'm well aware of being in the pit of being a CFL football fan, specifically the Argo pit. I was in an organization that this man started called Argo Lifers. And it was his heart's ambition to promote the Canadian Football League. And I will start by saying this because I know how hard it is for him to have this conversation right now because of how much he loves the team and has loved the team for as many years as he has. I hope I'm not blowing up his head or getting him upset with me the way I'm introducing him. His name's John Granger. He is the Argo lifer. He is the man who banged the drum at the Argo games until the drum disappeared. So am I lying?
No, you're not. You're choked up and clamped with that intro. I really appreciate that, Frank.
You're welcome. You're appreciated. I love you. You're a CFL brother to me, and I appreciate everything you did for all the Toronto sports fans that didn't know football, that got the invitation from you to come check it out. All right.
And
first,
the boat logo return.
That was one of the main things that we wanted the Argos to do. And we spent meetings with the top of the Argos before MLSC owned them, and even after, where we wanted to return the boat logo to, I think, its rightful place. And right. John led that charge.
Well, enough about me. let's dive right into it. Nice to meet you, David, too. Listen, this affected probably a lot of CFL fans across the league, like myself, passionate fans, and I've met a lot of them. And I'm one of those clear-minded, let's look at the future, the vision of the CFL and what's best for us. And I'm okay with the changes, except the 35-second play clock. That's the death of this fun league. And I call it the Canadian Fun League, because that's what makes it fun. It's the play clock that we get to see those last-minute drives and those last-minute first half chances to get a field goal down the field. You know, it is so unfair to hear the commissioner say, by the way, let me give you an example of the Eskimo-Hamilton game that finished. That ending, we don't want to see that again in that manner. And I'm thinking, what is he talking about? And he said, well, you know, there was a minute and 12 seconds and change left on the time, and it took 9 minutes to finish that minute. Yes, but the entertainment value was left on the field. You didn't kill the fan time of watching the live clock go down. So that means that I love those kind of finishes. I don't mind it taking 9-10 minutes for a 1 minute drive to take down the field. Even if it's not my team, it was exciting. Well, guys, all of that is gone. All of that is gone. And that's what sickens me. It to the core. I can't stand watching NFL games with the 40-second ticker going off. It's like we know in the last 5 minutes there's 5 plays left. That's it. That's what makes the difference in the CFL. It's never over until it's over. And it's incredible how many games, even this year, have gone down to the last few minutes where that will never happen again with the 35-second play clock. And all these mouthpieces talking on the behalf of the CFL and the analysts saying that, no, this is great, they'll speed it up, blah, blah, blah. Bullshit. This is all about the TV money time that's involved here. Because our play clock extends the game for the viewer, not for the time slot. So it's a ripoff, because we don't pay to watch the refs set the ball. And now we will be, because 35 seconds will be going off the real clock. Watching the sticks being moved, that was never part of the real time being taken off. So this is terrible. It sickens me. And that's how I feel about that.
Okay. On another side issue, while I have you as a fan, and you and I was a season ticket holder when the last time the Argos played home games on the road. It's amazing, and I don't want to criticize. I'm not trying to criticize MLSC, the Canadian Football League, or the Argonauts, or anything like that. But John, historically speaking, it's been hard to be an Argo fan, and now I remember what happened back then and how upsetting it was, and how it felt terrible to the fans. We're going to see that happen again, aren't we?
You're talking about next year with the schedule?
Yeah.
Well, okay, we're going off the rule topic. That's another heated subject that it's a slap in the face to the small core of Argo fans that we do have. There was no sense of, hey, let's see what the fan base feels about playing in Hamilton again, because that last disaster in 2015 with Rogers kicking us out and making us play the games in Hamilton was pathetic. And the fact that they are literally telling us, hey, you know what? We're going to charge you for the Hamilton game, but if you don't want to go, you can swap it out for another game that will force you to take somebody else to. But no one's going to travel to Hamilton. They don't even offer the fact that the nicest thing that could have been offered was, we'll provide the transportation ticket for anybody going as a season ticket holder to watch that. So it's an incentive to join in and go there. But why, Frank, in Regina? Because of the money. Why, Frank, in Winnipeg? Because of the money. But they're getting enough money with the FIFA stuff, but they don't give a shit about us. Just throw us to the curb. I would have been more than happy to watch it in New York University. Even Lamport Stadium. But not in Hamilton. Forget it.
I understand how you feel, and I sat in Hamilton when there were a few road games played there, a few home games. I'm sorry, played there. I remember distinctly.
Oh, you said it right. It was a road game. Like, I know
it was a road game that counted as a home
road game dressed as a home game.
Right.
Absolutely. Right. Listen, John, thanks for doing this. Any final comments on the rules and or being an Argo fan? And are you looking forward to next year?
No, I'm not looking forward to next year. Actually, after 39 years, we're going to be canceling. It's the only voice that real CFL fans have. I haven't written my letter yet, but they're getting it. Although Keith Pelly did write emails out to Argo fans telling him that he'll personally speak with us one-on-one, explaining the justification for the changes. Well, I wrote him back. He never called me. It's been a few days now. 2, I think, 3. Never called, never reached out. So is that just a farce email that he sent out?
Well, I think in fairness to that, John, just to be the devil's advocate, there's going to be, and we've seen this before, and we've been at what I'm going to mention right now, where they gather all the subscribers, bring them into a room somewhere. It's happened at the Queen Elizabeth building, and that's probably what they'll end up doing. They'll be bringing you together. You don't think they will?
No. Listen, guys, let me tell you something. This was all pre-planned by the governors, the presidents of each team. Pelly knew about this, kept it from pinball. Pelly knew all along. MLSC knew all along. They are doing this to make it more visually attractive because of this NFL merger that they're doing right now with the Buffalo Bills and introducing it. I'm not saying the CFL is turning NFL, no. But what I'm saying is they're killing it slowly with that one particular rule. I'm okay with the field goal. Look, the field goals were a unique kind of a characteristic attraction as a fan because I saw it as an obstacle. That's another guy in the field the quarterback has to play around. But no, visually, it's not nice on the cameras. Okay?
Yep, so I hear you.
You know, it's ridiculous, but I can live with those rules. I can live with the shorter field. All of that, cosmetics. But ripping us off on plays in the game. Because, do the math. 105 seconds, 3 plays. How many more plays can you get in with a 20-second clock, with a 24-second clock, whichever one you want to start the CFL one? We're losing plays, guys.
Yeah, well, okay. Well, listen, I respect your opinion. I wanted to give you a chance to vent and to give your opinion, and I respect your opinion. And it's not coming from somebody who's a passerby to the Canadian Football League.
Listen, I love this league. I really love this league. When Hamilton was suffering back in the Everwin days, we bought season tickets just to support them. I love this league. I love the Toronto Argonauts. Out of all the teams in the city, I support this team only. My wife and I, she's a season ticket holder for Leaf games. That's how I met her. Okay, and she's dropped that. We just became Argo season ticket holders. It's the only value ticket. It's the only ticket that we enjoy going to. It's entertainment at its best, even when we lose, but not like this. So after 39 years, that's it. Unless they change at some point and say, we're going to leave that. Because, Frank, it's not fair to say we're going to put the rule in, and then in the last 3 minutes, we might fiddle with it.
Yeah. See, I don't want to put words in your mouth or words in any fan's mouth, but I'll make a guess here. What will go a long way, and this is a suggestion I have for the Argonauts and the Canadian Football League, they're going to have to meet with the fans in a way that they invite the fans wherever it is they want to invite them, and to at least listen to the fans and understand the reaction that they have. But John, here's a suggestion I'm going to have. Having said that, that's something I really believe they're going to have to pay attention to your feelings and what you have to say. But I'd also like to say, because you represent the fan reaction in general, not specifically, the other fans feel differently about different things that are changing. But the one thing's for sure, this is fresh. And usually when things are fresh, we need time to wrap our heads around stuff. And what I called for originally driving home, because I was getting texts and I on my phone while I was driving home, and I didn't want to look. So every time I stopped at a red light coming from Toronto, I'd take a look. And what I'll say is this, is that it may not get good enough to be better, but I do believe that once we wrap our heads around this, if they follow through and do it, the one thing I've learned about the Canadian Football League is they've thought outside the box. And what I said to the commissioner before I said goodbye to him and said, thank you for inviting me, I said, Commissioner, I got the tagline for this thing. For the first time, we've got a league thinking in the box, because that's what this was all about. Now they're thinking in the box, not outside it. They're thinking about what happens in that box. And that's all I'm going to say, John, is that, and David, is that they really think these changes are going to be more attractive. And I don't think it has anything, I disagree. I don't think it has anything to do with the NFL, zero to do with the NFL. I think it has to do with presentation. Now, you might have something there. It wouldn't be the first time that the league has changed some rules or the way they do things to accommodate a 3-hour window. There's no doubt in that. That happens in sports all the time because TV stations like to have a box that they can fit the game in, and it ends at a certain time. So that, I'll grant you, is a possibility.
Okay, you know what? My rebuttal to that is fine. Then I'll watch it at home. And I won't buy the season ticket anymore.
There you go. Well, that's ultimately you have that choice, and that's what everybody's choice is whether they want to buy tickets or not. John, thanks for doing this. I know how passionate you are, and I know how much you're holding back because you're a lot angrier than people realize. And I appreciate you being so willing to have a decent conversation. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Take care.
Okay, he's John Granger. He is the Argo lifer. You'll know him to see him. And you know, I made the mistake of not posting his picture. I had his picture. Maybe in memoriam, I'll put it out. I'll put it out there. Well, you know, it's something, David, that it's a feeling that he has, that many other fans have, because change affects people sometimes more than it should, because time sometimes helps those changes work out better, right? In time, they don't seem as impactful.
Look, I do think that there are some points that John brought up that were very valid. You know, the change in the clock. I mean, look, the thing we always talked about in the CFL, it's never over until the game is done. We always said that, right? Because there's always that chance with the way the clock is. But guess what? A million people that I know, or the few people I've actually had tune into a CFL game, they automatically ask me, what is the actual clock? Like, how does the clock work in the CFL? So when you're trying to bring in somebody who hasn't watched the CFL as long and they're coming into it and they're asking how a clock works, I think that played a little bit of part of it. You know, I told him, well, it gets blown in when the refs got the ball set and it's ready to go. Now, the moving of the benches does help a little bit of that, because part of the reasoning for the way that the ball is set down is because injuries and getting players off the field, substitutions, and things like that. It'll help with the changing of the benches. But I get it. Yeah.
Specifically, when a player's on the sidelines, and if the ball's on the 5-yard line, the way it is right now, depending on which 5-yard line, a team has an advantage in making a change at that point. What this does, it gives the team on each side of the field the opportunity to set up along outside the boundaries of the field and work their way onto the field from a position directly diagonal to where the play is. I'm sorry, I just wanted to be
Win McManus made a very good, and
we're going to play that comment. We're going to.
There's a comment that you're going to hear from Win McManus is going to make a lot more sense with this change as well. But here's what I'll say. I understand where the fans who are in the stands say, "Well, why do we care about why should we really care about the TV product?" Which I understand that, but guess what? Guess where a lot of the money, most of the money comes from. A good majority. If you wonder why all these leagues are increasing salary in terms of the salary caps and what players are earning, it's because the TV deals are a lot more lucrative, and that's easy revenue that comes right in. TSN has been pumping money into the CFL, pretty much keeping the CFL going for a long while. But it's also about you're trying to bring in other partners. So if you want to bring in like a CBS is doing it right now. Well, if CBS is playing a CFL game, and you're never going to get an exact time for each game. But if you go in and you say, it might end at 4:15, it might, or let's say a game starts at 7, it might end at 10, it might end at 10:15, 10:20. Sometimes that doesn't work, right? It only will work, guess what? If you have a streaming partner, like an Amazon.
Or the time slot is open-ended.
Right, exactly. And not many of them have that much of an open-ended time slot. And in the CFL, we've seen in some cases, they go from one game right to another game. They don't have a lot of time in between to also analyze the game as well. So there's probably a little bit of that too. I look at, and I'm still seeing reaction from this. Like, this is probably you talked about this, Frank. This has brought in such attention. Now, I don't think this is the reason why they're doing it. I don't think the reason why they're doing it is to generate buzz. But boy, oh boy, did it generate buzz.
It sure.
What I'm just seeing is, people are. I've heard two sides of the story in that people who come to me and say, we need to get more people in the stands. We need to get more eyeballs in the CFL. But them also saying we can't change this. We have this is killing the CFL. Well, not making change could also kill the CFL too. And we had 6 of 9 teams lose money each and every year. It's not a sustainable business model. The league was in dire straits during COVID. They couldn't get funding to keep the league running. A lot of people lost their jobs within the CFL. That really hurt. So I don't mind the CFL saying we're making these changes and looking to make the product that much better. Now, the 55-yard line, I get it. That's something that's been synonymous with the CFL forever. To me, I see it, and in some cases I will miss it, but in other cases, just like it's not a hill I would die on and get upset about and be like, that's it, I'm done, right? The moving the goalposts, to me, that was such a sensible option because, again, there is a bit of the TV part to it. It looks visually better, but guess what? CFL quarterbacks, CFL offenses love the middle of the field. They love attacking the middle of the field, right? Yes, the boundaries too, but the middle of the field can become such a bigger part of an offense, but it's not because of the goalposts, right? The way that they run offenses.
I'll explain it this way. Right. Very simply, you're a quarterback, and they go what's called a progression, right? And the progression is basically this, all right? Gets the ball, and he goes, I'm slow motioning it here, right? Goes like that. Well, with the goalposts in front of you, this is what you're doing. It just doesn't make sense. The goalposts.
Or if you're backed up in your own end and you're dropping back.
Absolutely. Look. And what they've done is they've taken away the yards, the 55 yard line. But what they've done is they brought the field being used 100% of the time, 100% the way it's intended. If one considers the playbook as an intention, and that intention is what you're trying to execute, when you say, all right, now you're on the 5 or 6 yard line, and now you got to throw through goalposts, what good is the playbook? What good is it? So at the end of the day, this creates an opportunity that no matter where you are on the field, offenses have a shot, and they're not struggling to be offensive. And the league wants offense, right? And as far as the less yards are concerned, these are just quick things. I'm going to less area to be traveled, right? To be able to get a touchdown. You have an extra 10 yards you don't have to worry about. So that helps with the offense. Like it or not, that helps with the offense too. So there's a lot of things that are important. And I'm going to take this time. We're going to and David's got to help me do this because I don't know how this works. If I just hit double click on that thing, it's going to show on the screen.
Just click it once. You shouldn't have to double click it.
I shouldn't have to double click.
But also adjust your volumes accordingly to make sure you guys can hear, because I know the audio
so I'll be ready to have to adjust the volume. This is done in a confined environment that's fairly noisy, so the sound might be a little testy. So we'll start with the coach of the Toronto Argonauts, representing coach's view of the rule
I think,
change.
we always look at, how we can make the game better for our fans, right? And speed up play. It's been a big discussion over the last few years. So, obviously scoring points have been a big thing. A few years ago we weren't scoring that many points. So I think anytime we look at, finding ways to make it more exciting for our fans, we always got to look into that. All my American friends, they love watching the CFL, right? They find it more exciting than the NFL. Even myself, I love college football, but sometimes I watch the NFL and I'm going, this isn't as exciting as our league. I mean, our games always come down to the end, and you look at our games this year, it's almost the last drive, each week. So that's pretty exciting.
The 35-second play clock, how much do you think it's going to change for you when you need to call plays and make sure that you can do that in enough time? Is that enough time for you?
Yeah, plenty of time, right? Because now we got the 20 seconds, right? Obviously, they're going to blow it in a little bit earlier, I anticipate. I won't know until I get in it, but, maybe we can have some more double cadence where we can let the defense show their hand and we can get to the right play, right? So that gives you 35 seconds to operate, especially if you go fast, right, and no huddle it. So I think there's going to be more aggressiveness on the offense with a 35-second play clock, and then being able to find the right play versus the right look.
What do you think you're going to miss when they move the opponents to the other side? You strike me like somebody who likes to engage your opponents when they are closer.
No, not really. I've been pushing for that for a few years, right? And it was obviously a financial thing, but I think it's better, right? So we didn't have anything that happened like 2 weeks ago. So I think that's gonna be good for the league. Yeah, we'll see. I think moving the field goals back, right? Now we got to be pretty smart as attempting some of the longer ones, right? So maybe that might lead to some more points as well off missed field goals and returns. So, we won a game off the Rouge, we've lost a game off the Rouge. I think it's been in the league for a long time, but I don't think it's going to be a big adjustment, moving away from it. And I think, you look at a lot of the fan base, when we won our game, they weren't very excited that, we locked up a home playoff game by that. So I get the concerns with both sides of it. Well, when we're backed up on our own 5, right, that goalpost is a problem. So a lot of times we just call plays in the boundary to try to get out of our end. Now we'll have, our whole arsenal as far as, play calls available for us now. Sure, the only thing I can think of, what a lot of teams offensively try to do is use the goalpost as a pick, right? And so you're not going to be able to have that opportunity anymore. But I think it's for player safety reasons. There hasn't been a lot of injuries, guys running the goalpost, but I think it could happen, right? So I think the players are excited; they don't have to worry about it as much.
Go ahead, David.
Yeah, he very quick in his responses, I will say, but I do think that they always talk about the one thing is like they said that wasn't done with consultation. I think a lot of these things have been talked about in past. I don't think Stuart Johnson came in and said, "All right, I'm ready to make these changes like right now." I think he took his time to really, and they have their winter meetings and things like that. They're constantly talking about things that they can do to change, and I think that's you look at a coach like Ryan Dinwiddie who, has advocated for things to change, and I'm sure there's going to be an adjustment for a lot of things, like the hash marks. People forget the hash marks were changed, And he brought that up too. And he's like, now we don't even really talk about it anymore. Like, I do think that the people who, in my opinion, when it comes to the rules, should really care about the rules are the ones that are actually playing the game. The people who are each week each week are having to play the game as it's being dictated, right? I get fans who have held on to the Canadian identity. I don't think this changes the Canadian identity of the game. And a lot of the things that Ryan was saying, never once did we ever feel like he felt like the changes make it less CFL. That didn't come out, and you heard him say, "I advocate for this game. I find it's a better quality product than what the NFL brings," and I have people who agree with that too. But there are things visually you can do that when people are watching, they're not going, "Well, this is kind of strange," or "Why is it done like this?" Get rid of those. Get rid of those and keep the essence of what makes the game exciting there. And I still think it is there.
All right. For me, it's I don't want to take up too much time because I want to hear from the experts. And as David said, the players, the coach, they're the ones that can help us understand how it affects the game. And I will say this, is that the phrase bait and switch comes to mind since they did this. While people are suggesting, right? While people are suggesting this is the Canadian Football League bending to the American rules, I agree. That's what they're doing. But they're not doing it to the extent that you think, folks. What they're doing is, in my opinion, just my opinion, the term bait and switch comes to mind. So now we know that the CFL needs to promote their league. We know that they want Americans to watch this game. All right. So it's less about bringing American teams to Canada. It's about bringing American eyes to Canada. Now, here's the thing. This is an opportunity to set a trap. Here's the trap, folks. You put the game on TV in the U.S. They don't see those goalposts. They don't see the 55-yard line. They think they're watching a regular football game in the U.S. They think that's what they're watching. And they're watching for a little while. They don't know that it's Canadian football. They're watching, and then they start getting curious. They watch the way the games get played. And maybe, this is me wishful thinking. Okay, I'll be the first to admit, this is me wishful thinking. My wishful thinking is that people will watch the game. They won't be distracted by the differences. They will feel like they're watching what they normally watch in football, but then they're going to get an opportunity to see what it's like to watch a Canadian Football League game only after they've watched it for a while until they realize that's what it is. So for me, that's the upside, is that the game, we're competing now. The Canadian Football League is competing for eyes that love football. And all across the world, there are people who love football. So yes, it has to do with visuals. It has to be, it's totally to do with visuals and what's visually expected, right? That's the way it is. That's what it's all about.
Well, I think you're right on that, Frank. I think you're trying to keep the essence of what makes the Canadian Football League exciting, which is pushing for more offense, the waggle, the motion, the 3 downs, 12 men on the field, even the Canadian ratio. Like that I don't hear about that going away anytime soon either. 3 downs, we'll see. That one, the commissioner didn't exactly throw.
Well, let's keep this in mind. He was asked what isn't on the table as far as change is concerned, and he said nothing. So that's concerning for some people.
Yeah, I know.
Now, that doesn't mean anything other than we're willing to listen about anything. And as far as arriving at the conclusion to do this stuff, you got to know that the players, the coaches, the people involved in the Canadian Football League, the media, we get together, David. We've been in some situations where we've gone social with media people, the league, and all that stuff, and we have conversations about the game. Don't be surprised that this isn't something that the owners and or the top people at the Canadian Football League just started talking about. These are all conversations that have happened over the years between two fans, between two guys in the media, a fan and a member of the media. You know what I mean, right, David? And I believe that's a reality. So a lot of the information that they went by is stuff that's rehashed, because all these like the goalposts, the getting rid of the 55-yard line, all these things have been discussed at some point somewhere, because we talk about how important each of them are when we have conversations with each other.
Well, exactly. I would just wish people were a little more open to seeing how it is before they, like, the MLB announced a big change a few days ago that the umpires, it's going to be now they're going to use more of the automated calling for balls and strikes. And you know what people said? Thank God. They didn't go, oh, how could you take away from the spirit of the MLB and umpires? They're like, thank God, right? And to me, it's just
they were working last night.
Yeah. Right. Like, I look at these changes. The NFL made the change in 1974. People forget the NFL had goalposts in the middle of the field at the goal line, just like the CFL.
Because they're called goalposts. There's a reason why they're called goalposts.
And they moved it to the back of the end zone because too many field goals were being kicked. Put more of an own. And what have we always said? What's more exciting, touchdowns or field goals?
Right. Or challenging the defense.
Right. Defenses are happy to give up a field goal, and offenses tend to be happy to just and content to just take a field goal when a touchdown could be there. You just heard Ryan Dinwiddie say it. Now we got to think about how we're doing things a little differently, because guess what? Teams in third down situation and second and long, they're like, you know what? We may not be able to get the third down, the first down. We can get a manageable field goal out of it. Absolutely. And the NFL's like that too, still in a way as well, right?
Right.
But I just look at what they've changed, and somebody actually put up I wish I had the graphic, but somebody put up a graphic saying this is what's still different in the CFL versus the NFL, and there's so many differences.
Yes.
To me, it's still different enough to be Canadian in my mind.
Yeah, well, I've said something forever. What makes the Canadian Football League different than the NFL? But I'm going to let a player tell you later on because he says it. Mm-hmm. Let's go to Wynton McManus, a defender, because most of these changes have to do with making it easier for the offense. I mean, if you're taking away 10 yards of the field, you're making it easier for the offense. Is that a fair statement? Right? Moving the goalposts. So when we heard Ryan Dinwiddie talk about the game plan changes because they're behind the goalposts. So let's hear what a defender has to say about this very topic.
It's going to make for a pretty exciting game. I think it's going to open up the passing game a lot more, which I like. A lot of opportunities to kind of make some plays. I think it's going to be interesting, though. It's going to be a new look for the league, a new look for the game up here, and, I'm with it. Man, I say to them, I would just say change is necessary a lot of times, and change is needed for growth. It's going to take some getting used to, yes, but you'll be fine. It's just like, getting a new phone. Apple updates the iOS all the times, and, you hate the new update, and then a few weeks later you're used to the update and you don't remember the old update. So, I kind of think it'll be one of those things that, once people start seeing the games being played and then, still just having that excitement behind it, they'll forget all about it. I think a lot of these changes are going to end up being something that we look back on and we think that they were all necessary.
What are the rules that make this game unique that you fall in love with?
For me, the waggle is kind of weird because I'm a defensive player, but I've learned to study, the waggle and learn to study how those players attack the line and, what they're doing from some of those things. And I think that's what really makes this game, unique and different just to the naked eye of watching the game. And, for me, that's one of the things that I've grown to enjoy and I look for. When I watch a NFL game or a college game, it looks kind of weird to me now not seeing, people moving and players waggling and people moving, things like that. But for me, I think that's one of the better things in my opinion.
David? It's like we just introduced that statement by him, right? He just was echoing what we said earlier.
Yeah, here's the thing. Win McManus, I understand he's American, so people are like, why should we listen to an American's opinion on things like that? Because I know there's some people out there like that. But this is a player who has made his living playing the CFL game. This is a player who has called Canada, has called Canada home in a lot of ways. He's been here for a long time. He has a good tie to this game too, and that's where, I understand the angst about this is because, but like we're talking about, looking at ways to evolve, right? Every sports league has found ways to evolve and change for the betterment of its future. It might not be popular to do what needs to be done,
or at first.
Or at first, right?
There's that point too.
I get that, but in the long run, Stuart Johnson said the numbers, the analytics suggest that this will actually benefit this league in the long run, right? They didn't just make this decision because let's throw this out there and let's try. They studied it, they researched it before they came to this conclusion, and that was important for me to hear. This isn't just because he one time tried to throw a ball in the end zone and he hit the upright. I heard that story and people were like, "Oh,
that's what he said."
Be a better quarterback, as well. I heard one person said it's just like we have seen a playoff game end with a doink off the goalpost. That shouldn't happen. Like that stuff is avoidable, right? Like, and I get it.
Just because it's cute doesn't mean it's good.
No, exactly. That's something that makes the Canadian
well, that was interesting,
different.
Wasn't it? All right, they're going to the playoffs. We're not.
It just to me, why have those silly things? There's a lot of things that the CFL does that I am not a fan of. I brought it up on here.
Sorry,
but like it's the essence of the game still is important to me in that regard as well.
There's more to it than just these points here. Anyway, Wynton McManus as a defender talked about the waggle. That's all I'm going to say. He loves the waggle. He loves the challenge. And so as far as advantages are concerned, there's advantages. But really what's important is if you can't listen to a defender talk about the offensive advantage that an offense has, and he still and that's something that he loves. He loves something that he's competing against that makes it harder for him to defend. How can you suggest the Canadian game is disappearing? Because the waggle's not going anywhere. There's going to be, maybe it depends. This is a pendulum moving, right, David? It's a pendulum moving that they're deciding to change the game in certain ways. There's going to come a time when they go too far, and it's going to be visited by a lot of people who are going to fight back. This could be the moment, but only time will tell. And the real test is real time. And real time is, let's see what this does. If it's a complete failure, do we go back or do we sit here and cry about it? Well, the league has made a decision, and I'm assuming they don't want to go back, and they don't want to make decisions and go back. So I'm taking the wait and see approach.
Of course. You don't have you in some ways you can't just be totally this is amazing. It's gonna be amazing. We gotta wait and see a little bit too.
Absolutely. Let's hear from Dejan Allen. Dejan Allen is a line.
As a Canadian, what did you think of when you saw the changes?
I thought, I'm always an advocate for change. I feel like change is growth, and as an entertainment business, I feel like that's what we need, and the management has a responsibility to grow the game. And if that's what they feel like is the right answer to make this a better product on TV, on the field, then all I could do is play ball, right? So I think I'm all for it. I think it's a good thing that they're willing to make those drastic changes, and says a lot about management, and I'm sure they did their due diligence and their research and everything. So Yeah, definitely. And I think, the game and the field, the Canadian field definitely has a unique look to it. This does change that a little bit. So I can understand how there might be some people upset about it. There's never going to be 100% unanimous agreement to such drastic changes. And so feathers are going to be ruffled. And I understand that. So I've been reading all the comments, and I've been seeing the people who are pretty pissed off about it. And I understand. But again, change is good. And if this does grow the game, all the fans are just going to be that much more appreciative of it.
Yeah, Dejan Allen. Sorry,
Dejan Brissett.
Brissett.
Yeah.
Oh,
It was there was a mistake on that. It was Dejan Brissett of the.
Okay, my bad. Well,
But
he's a receiver.
He's a Canadian receiver, and he's played both games. He's played in the NCAA with the American rules, and he's played the Canadian rules up here in the CFL. Right. He's somebody that has an important, he knows what this decision can do for the game, both on and off the field, right? But the other thing too is, and Nick Arbuckle talks a lot about this, but it's thinking about moving this game forward, because it sometimes, if you're resistant to change, you run the risk of being left behind in a lot of ways, right? And so I think that's something that the CFL is realizing too. Now, granted, we don't really know how and I talked to somebody about the bench changes. That's something that they've been wanting to do, but at the same time, it is a logistical hurdle in a lot of ways, because you got to now set up all the tech stuff on the other side of the field, and a lot of these stadiums haven't equipped themselves for that. So there's going to be some work to be done to get that done in every East stadium, and all the stadiums have to get that done. Majority of them. The West ones, it's not that big of a problem, but the East ones.
And David, who's going to pay for that?
Well, that's the thing, right?
The teams are going to pay. So if they think this is my point that I'd like to make. If the owners are accepting expenses that they're going to have to pay, and David mentioned earlier how many teams are not making money, for them to be willing to spend money, trust me, they're not spending that money if it ain't going to benefit them in somehow. And it isn't about joining the NFL. That ain't it, because there ain't going to be Toronto can hope and pray that they get an NFL team. They have an outside chance, a very deep outside chance. There are a lot of cities in the U.S., and the way the U.S. environment is right now, trust me when I say this, putting a Canadian team in the NFL right now with that environment, I find it very unlikely. So, this is them being willing to put their money where their mouth is. And I credit the owners and the CFL for getting together and doing that for that very reason, because they believe enough about this that they're willing to spend money to do it.
Yeah. Here's the other part of this whole conversation. I didn't want to put this on John because I would have wanted him to have a chance to think about a response. But I understand people say that they love the game, they love the CFL. But if you're not willing to support change or to support something that might help the league, and if you're not open to it, I find that's not really fan support that this league needs. I think the last thing that fans should be doing is openly saying that they're looking at the depth of the CFL. When I have people coming to me and saying, why can't they get more than 15,000 people at an Argos game on a consistent basis? And I hear them saying, well, why aren't they marketing this league more? Why aren't they doing this? Why aren't they doing that? They have marketed. And the marketing shows that people aren't responding to what they see in the CFL, I guess. I had somebody even tell me, oh, it's kind of silly with the way the goalposts are done. I don't know why it's done like that. I told you about a friend of mine that says the clock rules make me confused. You can't market to people if there's things that are keeping force that are holding the game back.
Well, and the league has a right to figure
Yeah.
out and to decide what they think they need to do to inspire interest. Because at the end of the day, you know, well, we have here. I'll tell you what. Let's. I have one more player, and that's the quarterback, Nick Arbuckle, on the rules. And I have to warn you that this is the longest.
He talked,
and I trimmed it as much as I could, but there was so much I didn't want to trim. And you're going to hear. Listen, I didn't do this in a way to go, okay, I'll have one player talk about this point, another player talk about this point. I trimmed it in the sense that I wanted for people to hear the way they talked about each point that they felt was important. And I didn't want to edit it out. But I did edit out a lot of stuff. It was much more than 3 minutes. Trust me when I say that. We'll give now Arbuckle the floor, and he's going to talk to us about the rules. And he's going to talk to us. And I want you to listen to this, because the reason it's so long and why I couldn't edit it down was because he was talking about coaching in Canada. He was talking about football in Canada. He was talking about youth football in Canada. He was talking about college football in Canada. And I want you to listen to this. And I defy anyone who hears this to not understand the logic with which Arbuckle spoke. So here's Arbuckle, Nick Arbuckle, the Argo quarterback, talking about the rules and how he feels about them.
Just the idea that the new commissioner, the board of governors, and people running the league are willing to, go out on a pedestal and make drastic changes to the game for the goal of growing the game financially, for interest-wise, just to be willing to change rules within the game to do whatever they think, is going to better the game. Because at the end of the day, as a player, I'm just an employee. Like I'm no different than anybody else that receives a T4. I don't have, some right to tell, a bunch of people who invested millions and millions of dollars and owners of this league how they should run the league and what they should do.
Is there something to be said for just the cultural differences of it?
Not at all. I mean, it's a business. At the end of the day, what we're doing, we're athletes, but the people that run this, the league and people who run the organizations, they're doing this as a business. It's an entertainment business. Like these are sports, and we're sports teams, and we're athletes, and we're competing. But at the end of the day, the people, we're getting paid because it's a business, and people are putting a lot of money and investing their finances into growing the league, and they want to return on their investment the best they can. And for us, it's our job to go try to win whatever football game they want us to play, however many downs it takes, whatever the football field looks like, as long as there's a football and the goal is to score points. Our job is to go, take that and go try to do whatever we can with that, find the advantages we can with the rules and the field that we're given, and go have fun and go try to entertain people and play and compete and do the things we love to do. I've been coaching and training players and kids, from 10-year-olds to 18-year-olds and college players, for years now. My kids were born in this country. I think the most unique thing about Canadian football is that we have football being played in Canada. I think that's what makes it Canadian. I think that's because if you look at, nobody's going to say the people in Quebec are less Canadian or playing a lesser brand of football in CJEP just because they're playing 4-down football with no yard neutral zone. So, all those people from Quebec and CJEP, that's still Canadian football. It doesn't matter how many downs they're playing. If you're a kid growing up in Ontario, you're playing 4-down football until you get to U16. You're U12, U14. So the rules that these kids are growing up playing in the grassroots of football, in different provinces, how things change, doesn't matter. It doesn't make those kids or those people from different provinces less Canadian or playing a lesser brand of football just because their rules don't match what the CFL does. What makes us special and unique is that we're playing football in Canada.
Now, I've said that from the first time this subject came up going back 13, 14 years, and it's basically my whole life has been the same thing. And Nick Arbuckle just banged the drum that I always said. Somebody says to me, now, how many times have I posted? Somebody says, well, why do you think this is what makes Canadian football, the Canadian Football League, Canadian? And I always respond with BC, Edmonton, Calgary, Winnipeg, Saskatchewan. I forgot Saskatchewan. Hamilton, Toronto, Montreal, and Ottawa. That's what makes it Canadian football. It's being played here. And the accent on that isn't just the accent aigu like in French. The accent is we have a lot of Canadian players that play the game, and we're learning every day how much better they're getting at it. That, David, to me is the bottom line. It's the game being played in Canada. And like I said before, if you're baiting and switching and tricking people into thinking, oh, this is regular football, it looks like everything I've seen before. Now I'm going to watch it and then go, oh, that was an interesting play. Hey, why are those guys moving? All the better if you can attract that interest.
Exactly. No. To me, it's what makes the Canadian game Canadian. First off, yes, it's in Canada. Games are playing in Canada. They haven't been played anywhere outside of Canada since what, 94? Yep. Part of it too, the draft. We draft only Canadian players.
Yep.
It's not open to American players to come into the draft. Yes, do the rules make it Canadian too? It does. The 3 downs, the waggle, the 12 men on the field, the wider field, which is still being kept around, by the way, even with the benches on opposite sides. What they could have done is says, well, to get the benches to work, we have to now make the field not as wide. But guess what? You still get the wide field. That makes it Canadian. The goalposts don't make it Canadian because the NFL also had the goalposts in the same spot, right? The field length made it Canadian, distinctly Canadian, but the end zones didn't make it. We didn't even talk about the end zones. The end zones were not distinctly Canadian because guess what? It was 25 yards at one point.
Yep.
Not every CFL stadium can even do that. Not even every stadium Canadian. Not every stadium can do it 20 yards. So why are we getting upset about the fact that we can't even do it the way the Canadian game has, as written, wants to do it?
Two examples. I'm sorry for interrupting.
Go for it.
Two great examples are in Toronto. The field is grass except for the south end zone.
Yeah.
Right. And the other thing is
end zone. Sorry, north end zone.
Right, you're right. Then you've got Montreal that has the corners cut out of the end zone. So it looks. I'm sorry, guys, but that looks unprofessional. Let's be clear here. They're creating a box, a template that works in every Canadian Football League place where they play, and that's the important thing too. So there's a reason for that. And as far as the end zone is concerned, if you get rid of the goalposts in the front, you don't need all that yardage because a lot of times what they're doing is they're throwing not over the goalpost, but with being over the goalposts in mind.
Mm-hmm. So, like to me, Nick Arbuckle, I think, is right in some ways that, there are people who come into Canada now. His life is Canadian. He lives in Canada. His children are Canadian citizens. The only thing I will push back on, players are more than just employees. They have a bit of a stake in this, right? They receive revenue from the league, right? They probably have some sort of partner. They're a partner. They're not an employee. They're a partner.
Yes,
I think the league maybe. Now, I'm sure the reason why they didn't tell the players is they were worried that the news was going to leak because there are people within the media that do get some info from players, from agents, from the PA and all those things. I think that was the reason why they didn't consult the players. I don't think they went and did this and said, oh, we're not going to care what the players have to think. I don't think that was the reason for it.
David, can we agree on this point? And I want CFL fans to ask them this question. These rules have nothing to do with the game in a way. What they have to do with more than the time clock excluded, they have to do with the playing field. And that's the majority of what's going on here. The playing clock, that's a handoff that I think they're doing to help basically control the amount of time it takes them to complete a game. That's what they're trying to do. And I don't begrudge them that. David, you made the point real early. The game has to be played within a certain amount of time based on what.
And it has to have a better flow to it too. Because yes, while the end of the games are great, there are times where a big play happens late in the game and you're pushing, and then it's just like everything, you get the excitement and then it kind of you lose it. You lose the atmosphere a little bit. With the changes being made, you make a big play late in the game. Okay, there's more urgency now to get things going rather than, oh yeah, no, let's cuddle up everybody. Like, no, you're pushing. You're pushing the tempo of the game. You're pushing the pace of the game put a little more urgency to it. That will also get butts out of their seats, or in a game, because the urgency will be there to have the game, especially late in the game, really push for teams to try to win a game.
Absolutely. All right. In conclusion, I'm of the wait and see. Add everything up. That's my first thing. My second thing is, not all Canadian football players in this country play 3-down football.
Mm-hmm.
We heard that explained. So there is a different brand of football being played other than the Canadian Football League. The Canadian Football League isn't by definition how football is played in Canada. So maybe there's a bit of an reaction by people, because youngsters who play the game play it in a different way that the Canadian Football League does. So at some point, we have to realize that there's a cooperative going on here, that within the world of Canadian football, Canada, not the Canadian Football League, it's a game that's played in ways different than the major league teams do it. So that's not a leg to stand on. Saying that the game changes from the time somebody's young, they're playing a different game, and then the Canadian Football League age arrives and they're playing that kind of game. So it's the crown jewel of football in Canada, but it's not the only jewel. So kids all across the country enjoy playing the game. That's what I'm going to say about that in closing.
Yeah. You want kids to be able to enjoy playing football, and maybe even say, hey, I might not be able to get to the NFL, but the CFL is something I want to aspire for. You want a game that they can look at and say, I want to be able to earn a living to play. There is one, but we want to make sure that game is still around. We want to make sure that league is still around when it's their turn to go and play in it as well.
Absolutely. All right. Here's some word on the quarterback for the Toronto Argonauts. You went there. David worked really hard to get these quotes, and I want to get them in. I know we're past the normal amount of time.
We'll make this the last point. Don't worry, people.
Yeah, this is it. Okay, there's news. Nick Arbuckle may be starting the next game. And thanks to David, here's what the coach had to tell him.
When we're backed up on our own 5, right, that goalpost is a problem. So a lot of times we just call plays in the boundary to try to get out of our end. Now we'll have, our whole arsenal as far as, play calls available for us now. Sure, the only thing I can think of, what a lot of teams offensively try to do is use the goalpost as a pick, right? And so you're not going to be able to have that opportunity anymore. But I think...
Wrong clip, but I'll explain it. Don't worry, Frank. You don't need to play it.
Okay.
Essentially, Nick Arbuckle played about he had about 60% of the snaps at practice on Tuesday. Looked pretty good. Ryan Dinwiddie was actually surprised of how good he looked moving around. So if he responds well to practice, they think he'll be good to start on Friday. And Arbuckle said,
I got Arbuckle here.
Was given the injury, I wasn't even going to be able to kind of be walking right now, let alone like running and being able to play. So. We'll see how kind of that progresses and being able to, get to a full practice or, have that confidence and be cleared and things. But, just be able to do anything right now. I was on crutches like 5 days ago. And so where I'm at right now has just been an absolute blessing. I think it's, gaining confidence in the movement, understanding that, you know, if you're protecting yourself subconsciously in the way you move, you're not only risking injuring, re-injuring that part of your body, but injuring another part of your body. And, you know, everybody's fully aware of the risks of, you know, that comes with calf injuries and what those can lead to. So, you know, there's obviously caution in that, and you got to make sure that, you know, I can move and react to a chaotic environment without subconsciously trying to protect myself or protect a muscle and, you know, running a different way or exploding a different way that can risk further injury.
There. Okay, now you got the floor, David. Sorry.
Yeah. It wouldn't surprise me if he starts this week. I mean, it'll surprise me in the fact that I didn't think he was going to be starting. But you know, the Argos need him to start. We saw it, and especially against the BC team that pumped the Calgary Stampeders like they did. They're going to need him to start if they want any chance to win that game.
Absolutely. For me, it's a surprise that he's going in, and my antennas are up because he has a calf injury. If I remember correctly, isn't there a quarterback that went out because he came in too early with a calf injury?
Calf injuries are tough. Those are tough injuries, and you don't want it to go from bad to worse. But
and that's the danger here. That's the danger here. We've seen it in Montreal where an injury wasn't 100% recovered from. They feel that this one, the recovery time has been taken. So it really comes down to, the coach said the important detail here is they have to win a minimum of 3 games. A 4th game will give them a real good shot. They might be able to get away with winning 3 and making the playoffs. At the end of the day, these last 4 games are about playing an extra couple of games at the end of the regular season.
Yeah. And the Argos don't have any margin for error right now on that. So it should be a very desperate team that you see playing this game. Absolutely.
So we promised we wouldn't be much longer. We're not. Look forward to maybe Nick Arbuckle. If you're an Argo fan, you know that the opportunity to win is a little higher with him in under center. You know, you're not getting a guy who hasn't started or is starting his 2nd game. You're getting a guy who's won a Grey Cup, and I know that'll raise the hopes of you know, Argo fans that their team has a chance to make the playoffs. David, I want to thank you for getting those interviews to me, and I appreciated the opportunity to be able to share them with you, the viewers. And as always, David, thank you for doing this.
Thank you, Frank.
For David Morisuti, I'm Candid Frank Stanishi. Don't forget David at Sportsnet. Don't forget me at YouTube, Candid Frank Stanishi 1030 on YouTube. Thanks for watching, everybody. We'll see you next time. Hey, just wait. Let's see what happens with this. It's not going to be for a while. It's going to take a while before we see the changes. Maybe it'll be a good thing.